we'll pick our teams for the game. Alisson Becker, obviously in goal, Theo, but then the back four, possibility for a couple of changes, do you think, or would you be keeping it the same?
Tsimikas has to keep his place at left back. If Konate's trained enough to get a start, maybe you want to have him in, because Rangers do have a lot of pace and he'd offer a bit more pace at centre back. So even though Van Dijk's out of form, it's hard to see him taken out. And then the big question is, does Trent keep his place? I know I said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, with his World Cup place up for grabs, it's win-win in terms of that for Liverpool. But with his place at Liverpool, it's lose-lose. Like if he's out of form this much, you leave him in, hoping that he can play his way back into form. And we saw it against Brighton, how horribly that can go when a player's low on confidence. But then if you take him out, that will batter his confidence even more. I'd probably put Joe Gomez in at right back for this one, because it's coming so soon after Brighton. You are going to need to rotate your players for this and just to take him out of the spotlight. But I wouldn't be surprised if Trent started. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised either way. It would be a shock if he was left out of the squad altogether. So that's something you can write out. I don't think Klopp was going to pull a Southgate, but he needs to find some form either way, whether it's taking him out and putting him on the bench for a couple of games or finally playing through it. But this is a conversation we've been having for 2.5 months now.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think I'm going to go with Trent. I'm going to play Joe Gomez as well, actually, but I'm going to play him at centre-back. Rich, which way are you going to go with it?
Despite conceding 3 goals on Saturday, I appear to have picked the same back four, which alarms me somewhat. But, well, Tsimikas has got to play, hasn't he? So, although he wasn't pulling up any trees on Saturday, evidently. Matip's probably the most informed defender out of all of them, so I'd be very reluctant to take him out just for the sake of mixing it up a little. And we'll keep Virgil in, and Trent, I think, probably a good game to try and rebuild that confidence, knowing that there's bigger fish to fry on the horizon, and see how he does tomorrow. So tempting to take him out, but I'm gonna leave him in one more time.
Lynchy, which way are you going to go? I mean, the reason I've brought Joe Gomez in at centre-back is because I want Matip and Van Dijk for the weekend, and with so many matches to come, that's going to have to come into the thinking as well for this one.
Yeah, but I almost wonder whether Jurgen Klopp will think, just try and stick with that partnership at centre-half and just play that into some sort of form. And, you know, I don't think Konate is going to be ready to come back in. Joe Gomez had that stinker in Naples, didn't he? So I think in terms of centre-half, he'd probably be worried about putting him in. So I just think he's going to try and say to Joel Matip and Virgil van Dijk, play these next 2 and let's see where we're up to. But I do think there may be a change at right back, or I think there possibly should be. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold, you know, we've spoke, haven't we, about trying to play him back into form, and it just hasn't worked. And I thought that Brighton performance was one of his worst in a long time. So I think something needs to change there, and maybe that is, you know, you give Joe Gomez his way back into the team, because, you know, we've said previously that was, you know, he was poor in Naples, but it was slightly out of character. His season had actually been quite good up to that point. So it'd be quite nice to, you know, to give him a game at right back, and Trent Alexander-Arnold just needs to be pulled out of the firing line and see if that gets some sort of reaction out of him, and hopefully he can come back against Arsenal and look like the player of old.
He was good at right back during the final weeks of last season as well. He got a couple of assists, didn't he, Gomez? Didn't do much wrong. I think it's just that, like you said, it's just that Napoli performance. Maybe he's more informed than Trent if we do it on that basis.
Yeah, you probably want to get that Napoli performance kind of out of the system sooner rather than later as well. I think the longer it is that he doesn't play, the more we'll sort of point back and look at that one. But we'll move on to the midfield. Theo, it's a couple of decisions really to be made in that area as well. There's been a few comments around Artur. There's been a couple of different shouts as well. But I know myself and you were threatened on Twitter this morning around picking Jordan Henderson, but I am going to infuriate social media by picking Jordan Henderson, but at the expense of Fabinho.
Yeah, I'm starting this sentence and not knowing how it's going to end, to be honest, because you could say Fabinho's out of form, Henderson's out of form. It's a tricky one. Thiago probably keeps his place, but then at the same time, as you've mentioned, we've got Arsenal coming up. Do you want to save him for Arsenal and give Artemelo his start there? It does seem a good game to give Arthur his first appearance. But then how ready is he? Like, Jurgen Klopp didn't give us an injury update at his pre-match press conference. He wasn't asked about Arthur, so we don't know if he's still got a little bit way to go despite those minutes for the under-21s. I can see the sense in having Henderson as the number 6 because Fabinho was so poor. But then Henderson wasn't much better either. I think if Trent wasn't playing so badly, we'd probably be talking more about Fabinho's lock of form because it seems to be every single week like Doyley's having a moan about him in his analysis or whatever. So we'll go through it. We'll infuriate social media. We'll put Henderson in as the number 6. And, I said Thiago keeps his place. Don't really want Thiago and Arthur in the same midfield just yet.
Harvey Elliott has got to be in with a
yeah,
shout.
He's the only one left, isn't he? Harvey Elliott. Yeah, even then, he's not been the best link up with Trent so far. He did all right when he came on against Brighton. But then that's a midfield that we've seen for, well, him and Thiago. It's not been the best partnership. You're just hoping for the best here. You're hoping something clicks. I'll probably change my mind again by the time we finish the podcast. And then again when we actually get to Anfield tomorrow. Yeah,
Elliott, Henderson, Thiago for me. Rich, which way are you going to go?
None of these are particularly inspiring, are they? Which is a bit of a disappointment for the viewers and the participants, to be fair. But I have wilted under the pressure of social media, and I am going to say
mentioned in that.
I know, yeah, but I kind of I'd be two-faced if I didn't say I came away on Saturday saying captain's only lasted half a game there. You know what I mean? And I, to be fair, rather than looking at it as the view of actually bombing him, I'm thinking I am actually looking a game ahead here and thinking I definitely want him playing at the weekend. And the evidence in front of me suggests that he wouldn't necessarily get the maximum out of him playing both of these games. It's an interesting idea to take Fabinho and put him at there, and that's definitely got merit. But even though Fabinho basically stanked the place out on Saturday, I'm just holding on to him a bit longer. They're hoping that was something a moment that's gonna pass. Thiago's in because he's the only player in midfield I seem to actually enjoy watching at the moment with any level of consistency.
I didn't enjoy the first 20 minutes on Saturday. I did not enjoy that.
Well, the guy next to me was a bit worse for wear, so I was a little distracted for that opening quarter hour. So we might have had a reprieve there. But yeah, so Henderson's getting a rest. Fabinho, Thiago, and although I have been a little bit critical of Elliott being in this midfield in the shape of it, I think against Rangers he's got a good opportunity to try and bring something more in an attacking sense, and let's put him back in. So Fabinho, Thiago, Elliott.
Lynchy, Fabinho, Henderson, both, none. Which way are you going?
It's so difficult, isn't it? Nobody's in form. Nobody's in form.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I'd agree in terms of looking one game ahead. So I think that the midfield that has to start at Arsenal, whether it's in form or not, is Henderson, Thiago, and Fabinho. And I think Jurgen Klopp will maybe look at this as a rare opportunity, being at home, being against a weaker team in your Champions League, despite all the things we said earlier about the threat of them. I think, it's got to be your opportunity to take to rotate because there aren't that many of them and a lot of the games are important coming up. So, Arthur, he's had a lot of training time now. You'd like to think he's up to sharpness. If he is that Thiago light as he was sold to us, then, this is surely his opportunity to start again. I think Harvey Elliott, in a game where you're probably thinking you're going to have a lot more of the possession, his ability on the ball and quality in midfield areas is, an opportunity for him to show that. And I think so if those two start, then your big decision then is about the holding midfield role. And yeah, Fabinho maybe needs to just be pulled out and get himself ready and get his head on the Arsenal game. But maybe it could be a little bit of a job share between him and Jordan Henderson. If you start Jordan Henderson in that role and maybe bring him off around 60 and bring Fabinho on, maybe that could serve everyone best in terms of resting people up and ready in that midfield for Arsenal, but also maybe being strong enough to beat Rangers.
Yeah, certainly plenty of decisions in the front line as well. I think there's probably 4 players that I probably wouldn't mind seeing, Theo, in terms of the forwards, but there's only going to be 3 who start in this one. I'm going to go Salah, Nunez and Diaz, but that does feel very harsh on Diogo Jota.
It does, but then as Jota said when he was fatigued, he hasn't had much of a pre-season. adrenaline. Maybe he's carried him through that Ajax game a bit and through the international break. It depends who's fittest out of him and Nunes for who starts the line for me. Diaz obviously comes back in on the left. Salah keeps his place because even though he's not in great form either, you can't drop Mohamed Salah. Who's going to cause more problems to a Rangers defence? They're quite big at centre-back, but they're quite slow at centre-back. So you could argue either for Nunes or Jota there, can't you? One is off as one offers the other. It just depends which one of them's fittest. But we didn't get this injury update from Klopp at the press conference, so you couldn't really say how Nunes' hamstring's doing or how Jota's doing. Jota got more minutes against Brighton, so logically I'm going to say he's the one who's a bit fresher. So Jota, but it could be either of them. They need goals. They need game time.
Is it the same for you, Rich, one or the other, and then Diaz and Salah either side?
No. I have got Diaz and Salah. A relief to see Diaz back on the pitch, by the way, on Saturday. Comfortably, for me, Liverpool's best player this season, and the one who's actually exciting people in what we are accepting is not the best atmosphere at the moment, and certainly something that needs to be improved. So he's an absolute shoo-in. Salah, on the other side, again, I just don't know what's going on there at the moment. It's just not, I don't know, he's not really taking players on, is he? He's not, and some of his touches are occasionally heavy. Now I've seen stats galore that will make a mockery of what I'm saying there, but he's another one who's trying to sort of play his way back into delivering what we know he can. So, I don't think you have too many options on that side, really. So Salah definitely. And Firmino scored twice at the weekend. He wasn't brilliant in the game, being honest with you. But again, with one eye on the weekend, I'm possibly tempted to hold Jota back and play Firmino again. Nunes, not convinced the manager is totally satisfied with him yet, to be honest with you. So again, on the bench.
If we're doing a game ahead at a time, Firmino loves a goal against Arsenal and Jota likes a goal against Arsenal.
Well, that's why I'm starting Jota against Arsenal.
That should be Nunes in this one.
Well, yeah, and maybe it will be, but I just need a bit more convincing that he's completely got the trust of his manager at the moment, and I'm not 100% convinced of that.
Yeah, Firmino would be the one that I definitely wouldn't play, but there we go. That's why we do the podcast, isn't it? So we can all disagree on these things. Lynchy, which way are you going?
Yeah, I think Jota's going to start against Arsenal, and I don't see where Nunez gets his minutes and his confidence up, if not in this game. So he has to start for me.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, just before we finish then, match predictions. I'm going to go positive, 2-0 to Liverpool, a clean sheet, couple of goals. I think there'll be a bit of a reaction. Theo, what do you reckon?
Not a reaction. They concede first, but they stumble to a 2-1 win.
Oof, brutal. Rich?
Yeah, I don't see where the next clean sheet's coming from, but I do expect Liverpool to win, so I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool.
And Lynchy, a win, a clean sheet. Which way do you reckon?
Yeah, sure they're going to start playing well at some point. 2-0 to Liverpool. Good
stuff. Well, we'll leave it there. I think hopefully that's been a little bit of therapy for our viewers and listeners. It certainly has for me. I've enjoyed the show. If you want Jurgen Klopp and Kostas Tsimikas' press conferences in full, you can check those out on the Blood Red YouTube channel. We've got open training to come a little bit later on this evening and plenty around tomorrow's game as well. Until next time, though, from all of us here, it's goodbye for now.